everybody, and welcome to The Landscape on Rock Entertainment Sports Network, presented by Hospitality Staffing Solutions. I'm Dave Bacon, Spire Academy in Geneva, and we are pleased to be joined by Kevin Boyle, one of the top high school basketball coaches in the country. Montverde Academy kind of built it into a national powerhouse. Now you're coming to Spire. First of all, welcome to Northeast Ohio. What attracted you to Spire?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Secondly, what attracted me to Spire was just the tremendous facilities they have, the great leadership and plan they have in this new landscape of high school athletics. You know, in my opinion, things trickle down from the NBA to college to high school, and now with NIL being available for kids in the high school level, with agents and with investors trying to be involved with kids or allowed to be involved with kids at this age. It's just a changing field that you need people that, one, are comfortable in that field, and two, want to be grow to be leaders in that field.
So Coach, you spent more than 20 years at St. Patrick's in New Jersey, 14 years at Montverde. You don't move around a lot. Take me through kind of the vision at Spire and what really intrigues you to make you come here and try to do it again, build it up.
Well, that is true. I don't move a lot. I was, actually 24 years at St. Patrick's, and, had the good fortune of having a number of good players, including Kyrie Irving for a number of years there. And Shaheen Holloway, the coach of Seton Hall, was my first grade player there. But we had a bunch of good players there, and then we ended up going after 24 years to Montverde Academy, and Montverde was just a school that was a different school. St. Pat's is very much an inner city school, low tuition. Montverde was a $60,000 a year international boarding school, and there we were able to take it to another level when St. Patrick's was always a top 10, top 5 team nationally, but with the dormitories and with the institution support, we were able to win 8 of the last 12 national championship and attract a lot of the good players throughout the country. I mean, this past year we'll probably have 4 guys from that team: Cooper Flagg and Derek Queen, Asa Newell, and Liam McNeely, that will probably be drafted in the top 15 from the same team a year ago in high school basketball. And I think with the changing landscape, a place like Spire, I think is just really could be the leader, because the institutions like IMG, the for-profit institutions that have investors to answer to about their investment and how the school's branding and how the enrollment's doing, need to be a lot more invested in the growth of their athletics and their academics and staying in the forefront there than maybe nonprofit institutions have to do.
When you go and talk to a recruit, obviously you want talented basketball players, but what else do you look for to bring in that you think can succeed in your system with you as a head coach?
Well, I think first of all, you got to surround yourself with a good environment. When the culture of the community is good, when the culture of the academics is good, the culture of the discipline is good, it makes that easier on you to really get a guy to exceed his expectations as a player and a person. So one of the things we really look at, we definitely look at the player, and obviously he's got to have a certain talent level. Nobody's winning championships without, really good players, outstanding players. But, if you have that type of culture, you could win a championship, A, and B, you could get guys, like I said a few times, to exceed their expectations. And I think their families are important too, that, they're somebody obviously that they're closest to and very influential on them. So you also look at the families, because, sometimes you can get a guy or two that just needs a little molding and you can really help him. But sometimes if you get too many guys that are, not yet ready for coaching or ready for, positive discipline, they can end up causing problems on a team if they're not ready for that. I think all kids are both basically good kids, but sometimes people are at different times in their life when they're ready to be coached and mature enough to take hard coaching and discipline that's going to help nature their future.
4-time National Coach of the Year. You mentioned the 8 national championships, all since 2011. What do you smile about as a head coach? I know you want to win, but what puts a smile on your face and is so satisfying about being a high school basketball coach?
Well, obviously, as a competitor, you love being in the highest level of high school, which most people don't realize. It's basically low to mid Division I or more talent. The league that we were in last year, I think 7 of the top 14 picks in the draft will be from our league. So you're playing against high-level guys that are just 17 and 18 years old at that time. So it's very competitive. But I think the biggest thing is when you get older, are you having an impact on the people you're touching outside of basketball? The basketball part's important, but are they growing up to be, good fathers, good husbands, good people? And you could touch a lot more people that way and have a lot more influence that way than you can with basketball.
You mentioned you've been coaching high school 34 years. No, more, yeah. What's the biggest change that you have seen in the players?
Well, I think the biggest change is, years ago when you had the fame of a Bobby Knight in the Indiana days, it would say, dive through that glass door, and they would say, which glass door? Now a lot of times in today's world, kids are told to, that they obviously have their rights, and they're helping a lot of these institutions brand themselves as much as the institutions are helping them, or at least there's a percentage there that they're contributing to Ohio State's football team or something. So I think it's all important that you tell them why it's good for them as well as why it's good for the team. And a lot of times they're the same thing. If it's good for them, if you excel and you succeed, it's going to be good for the team. Most of that stuff is good for both groups. And I think now it's to appreciate the player, to let them know why you're coaching them hard. Always be respectful, but you can't tell me you want to be a pro and not work hard. You can't tell me you want to be a pro and not want to be in the weight room. You don't want to come back at 7 to 8:30 after practice and have an hour and a half of skills 6 days a week, and because you're a little bit lazy or tired. Well, then you're not going to be successful. And if we let you do that, then we're failing you, and you're going to come back in 5 years and say you should have pushed me harder. You should have made me run every sprint, or made me run again. Those type of things. And we have a guy, Derek Queen, is a good example. He's at Maryland this year, and he wasn't even in the first or second round. I seen the other day, going back 2 or 3 years ago, and I wouldn't play him his sophomore year. He was ranked high. I wouldn't play him half his junior year, and he would never leave because he knew if he went home, he'd be lazy again. And he came in 30 pounds overweight, and was just a great person. And he's the mini Joker of college basketball, skill set wise. And he's grown where he was 6th in some mock draft the other day, and a kid who grew up with not a lot, and he's going to end up probably making $250 to $400 million before he's done. And he learned to work hard. So you see a lot of satisfaction in a guy like that. That was a really good person, a really good mom, that they're going to be able to have a really nice life. And I know he's the type of guy that will share that with his community.
When we return to the landscape presented by Hospitality Staffing Solutions, Coach Boyle tells us who are his biggest influences and what made him want to be a coach. Who are your biggest coaching influences? You've been doing it for so long. What made you want to get in to coaching, and who influenced the way you coach?
Well, it's funny. My father was the head of an electrical union in New Jersey for years, but he was also a St. Joseph Roselle Catholic Grammar School coach for years. And, so wanting to be with your dad, I always hung around the teams, all the weekend games. And, he had a really good mind for the game. And then, I had a guy in high school, Steve Petrozelli, who, and Jerry Alaco, 2 guys that are really good high school coaches that, people don't know about because we were in a town that didn't have a lot of talent. But they really helped impact and influence me. And then when I went to the college world, Bill Rafferty, who's CBS Sports, NCAA guy, recruited me, and I was his last recruit. Maybe that's why I got out of coaching, because he recruited me, but he ended up, going into the business world and the television world before the season started, and had another good coach, Hadi Mahan, then PJ Carlissimo, NBA coach my sophomore year, was at Seton Hall, took Seton Hall to the Final Four. And then I transferred because I was playing like 12 minutes a game and just lived in the gym. I used to practice like 10 hours a day as a kid. And I went to St. Peter's, where a guy, Bob Whitey Duquette, who was a terrific coach, just was, all those guys were putting together a little taking a little bit from each of those guys, I think helped shape my coaching style and career.
You have both your sons that coach with you. All of them are coming, the entire family is coming to Northeast Ohio to live because you're taking the job here at Spire. What do you like about having your sons coaching with you? How unique is that, and how important is that to you?
Well, most of my family, my daughter is a very successful attorney in Florida, so I'm trying to get her to come down here because my little granddaughter Charlotte's with her, so that's the last move. But it's great to have my sons with me because one, obviously we hope to expand the number of kids that participate in basketball here, and can we get that to 150, 200 kids with 10, 15 teams and really help a lot of kids and help the school. And you want to run those teams like Burger King or McDonald's, almost like franchises that everybody's teaching the same way and developing the kids the same way, and there's a culture there, and that's why it's important to have two of my sons who basically grew up with basketball with me, and if I'm not around in any gym or facility or workouts, it's the same message. So that's great, and my wife's been with me through all this, and so she's always a good supporter in camp, and she runs a lot of my camps, and then she does a great job with supporting the teams. So it'll be good for us here to be able to get the kids off campus and get them over the house.
Coming up, Coach Boyle talks about his plans and goals for Spire Academy. This and more on The Landscape, presented by Hospitality Staffing Solutions. Talking with Kevin Boyle, new head coach here at Spire Academy in Geneva. Your view of how quickly you can get this rolling the way you want to at Spire?
Well, I mean, again, at St. Patrick's, they were one of the worst teams in New Jersey when we took over. About year 3 or year 4, we kind of got in the national picture, and then we kind of stayed there for about 25 years, where we were usually ranked somewhere from 1 to 7 most of the time. At Montverde, the first year, Montverde was a little bit further along when we got there. They had a program that would sometimes be in the top 20, then they would be top 50, top 70, in and out a little bit. And the first year there, we were able to get to the national championship game. And then year 2, 3, and 4, we won the national championship, where we had Ben Simmons and another Ohio State guy, D'Angelo Russell. And Devin Williams was an Ohio guy that played at West Virginia. So we got a crew in there early, and I think we'll have a team here next year that will compete for the national championship.
What keeps you going? You've been doing it. You've had a lot of success. You could sit back and say, "Oh, look what I built." What keeps you going? What wants to challenge to do it again at another place?
Well, one, I really love basketball. I love this age group. I think you could have an influence on them. Secondly, I don't think my wife wants me home all the time. And third, I don't play golf, and I'm not outside of eating out, there's not a lot else I do. Though I am excited that I'm moving to Mentor, and there's a Barnes & Noble there, and they're almost closed all over the country. And that's probably the main reason I'm moving there. I seen a Barnes & Noble I could go on weekends.
Coaching style. What are we going to see from your teams when we come watch them at Spire?
Well, hopefully, I think one of the things with coaching, you have to be able to adjust to the personnel you have, and I think that's a real difference in different levels of coaching. Most people have the same style regardless, and you usually want to keep that if it's successful, and can you recruit to that style. But sometimes, for whatever reason, if there's an injury or you don't get the player personnel you want, you may have to adjust a little bit. But usually the style that we want to play is similar that you see St. John's right now in Patino picking you up full court. Not a lot of double teaming, but occasional double teams, but really harassing you from baseline to baseline, trying to get you out of being able to, almost like putting pressure on the quarterback in football, where you better have quick dump offs. You're not running long patterns because we're coming at you, and we're going to try to impose our will and our attitude and, on you. And then offensively, to be a combination of teaching the guys how to play 4 out, 1 in, get out in transition, but also have probably 20 quick hitters, kind of NBA type quick hit actions to go to different people at different times, but with, hopefully being smart enough as a team, coaches and players, that against better teams with scouting or great defense, a lot of times your plays get blown up. And do you know how to play when a play gets blown up? Do you know how to play with 4 out and 1 out, 4 out, 1 in, and what concepts and do you have as players, and what teaching are you doing in drilling, so that looks really good even when you're not in a set play.
When we come back, Kevin Boyle talks about the lasting mark he wants to leave on his players that play for him. The Landscape, presented by Hospitality Staffing Solutions, returns right after this. What do you want players to say after they've gone through 4 or 5 years playing for you? What do you want them to take away from playing for Kevin Boyle?
Well, I think one of the things we want them to take away is hopefully that we've pushed them to their limits, but we were respectful to them, that it's okay to coach people hard as long as you are respectful to them, because they have a goal that's really hard. It's really hard to get to the NBA. It's really hard to be a major college star or European star. So hopefully we're pushing them to get there and excel there. And we've had, just so many of our guys, I think, having them do that and having good competition in the gym, like not being afraid of that you can sit if you don't play well. That we're going to have 8 or 9 or 10 guys we're trying to bring in that could play, and we're not promising Kyrie Irving in high school is going to start. That you should start, but if you don't bring it, then you won't start. It's up to you. You determine it. In your case, you determine it because you're good enough to be a starter. And that's, I think, the message we're trying to deliver to the kids of really bring it every day, really play hard, and that's about it.
You've seen so many players develop into lottery picks in the NBA. Is there a characteristic or a trait that they all have in common? Obviously, they have to be talented, but is there something that you can see in a young guy and say, this guy's going to kind of take off?
Yeah, we've had the good fortune of, I think Cooper Flagg will be the 4th guy that I've coached who will be the #1 pick in the NBA draft. I don't know if it's 8 or 9 top 3 or 4 picks and a bunch of lottery picks. And, most of those guys obviously had a lot of God-given talent, first of all, because, nobody's making chicken salad out of chicken poop. And, secondly, I think they embraced working hard, most of those guys really hard, and they embraced coaching. You were able to, again, almost never yell at them. A lot of times yell to them, but be demanding and explain to them, again, when you don't, R.J. Barrett, when you're not running hard sprints on the track at Montverde, of like, do you realize every one of these 40s is worth for you $25,000 because you have the ability to make $500 million. So the difference between your effort and your detail is you making 75 million versus 500 million, or having a cup of coffee in the NBA and being a G League guy, or making 20 million. So Andrew Nembhard from the Pacers, guys like that, who was a 2nd round pick, who I had him for 3 years, and I was trying to tell everybody he was a great professional, and finally, the Pacers finally brought in, and he just got a $60 million 3-year contract from like a great guy and a great worker. So it's, that's, probably the biggest message.
What are you most excited about coming to a new opportunity and in this area?
Well, I think it's, again, I had a great experience. The people, John Hopman, the head of Montverde, and Dave Bernatavich, the head of the academics, they were terrific with me. We had a great run there, and they're going to still excel and do really well. But, sometimes change is also just good. You've been around a place a long time. It kind of re-energizes you, kind of gets you, I was always excited every season, but now I'm kind of super excited. And, because like my son said in the press conference, that some people, want you to do good, and some people are tired of your teams doing good, so they would hope you maybe slip up a little bit and have some failure. So it's a good challenge to see if we could take a 3rd school and make them, as good as anybody in the country. So we're looking forward to it. Before
I let you go, how important are academics? You touched on it in the press conference. Take us through how important they are to what you're doing here. Well,
I think, again, that was one of the good things with Mr. Bernatavich at Montverde. He had a great system with us where, there was never a kid, and we had over 100 and sometimes 130 kids in our basketball academy, that if somebody missed the homework, had any discipline type of situation, which was rare, or was struggling in grades, they had a color code that would come to me to let me know somebody, and it could be even just working at 75 for a kid who's an 85 student. So they had a really good system to make sure the kids were involved in their academics, but to make sure the kids knew the coaches were involved in their academics. And most of the kids are not going to be professional players or European professional players. They're going to be, hopefully, they could be in basketball, they could be the GM, they could be an announcer, they could be, a scout or whatever the case may be. They could be an athletic director, administrator. In sports, there's a lot of jobs that they could be successful with and still, provide for their families and feel good about themselves. So, the academic piece is important, and I think obviously a lot of these one and done guys are in a different world. They're, not that academics isn't important, but I think a lot of people, if they could be a doctor and make $25 million a year and leave after 1 year, they'd probably leave after 1 year. So it's, in those cases, that's a different story, but it's rare. Most of us, the education, the long-term education and degree, if we agree with it or not, it's part of getting a lot of jobs in America aren't open if you don't have that background. So it's important to get that for multiple reasons, to grow yourself, to educate yourself, and to also give yourself the opportunities for employment.
Kevin Boyle, new head coach at Spire Academy. Welcome to Northeast Ohio.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time.
Appreciate it.
Can't wait to see you get this product out on the court here in Geneva, Ohio.
Thank you.
That'll do it for this episode of The Landscape. Make sure to tune back in for future episodes as we bring you guests from across the land. You can find us on Rock Entertainment Sports Network or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, I'm Dave Bacon. Have a good night.